Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Buffs On Podcast. We are the best POD in the 313. We got a special guest coming back on the show for a second time. Greatly appreciate it. Motor City Hoops himself, Bryce Simon. Welcome back. We know you got the fire intro, so before we go any further into that, happy belated Father's Day. What did you guys do, and did you have a good day?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, man, it was a really good day. Actually, we have three kids. The two older ones were their grandparents. So just had the youngest one. I actually tweeted it out. I think my wife might have tweeted it out actually. I mowed the lawn, and the little one, he's about to turn 4. His birthday's here in a week, and he just mowed the lawn behind me with his little fake mower, and that was a good Father's Day for me, guys. I spent a lot of the day watching film, mowed the lawn, had it looking good, and had a nice steak dinner that night. So it was good. And guys, I am excited to be back talking not just Detroit hoops, but NBA draft hoops in general. I'm excited. I didn't realize we were doing like all of these picks. So I'm juiced for this, man.
Oh yeah. You know, we can argue back and forth about Pistons picks all day, but we'll save that for the middle portion of the pod. Like Bryce mentioned, we're gonna try to build off Gabe's mock draft from last week. If you haven't listened to that pod, make sure you go and check that out. Connie and I had a blast picking on Gabe, but actually we didn't pick on him. We agreed with most of the picks, but we're gonna go straight into it. First things first. I think we all know who San Antonio is taking. Gonna make the joke until it happens. One of one. Victor Wembanyama goes first overall. Bryce, do you have any surprise takes on Vic?
No, I don't. I think he's really good. I don't even know what the concerns are, right? I guess there's injury concerns. I just think I think the word generational guys gets thrown around a lot, and sometimes unfairly. We may talk about that with a pick that's coming up here soon, a guy I like, but that I don't think is generational. I think it's fair to throw around generational with Victor Wembanyama. When Sam Vecini creates a tier just for Victor, and Sam Vecini's the guy I respect the most in this business in terms of NBA draft stuff, I think that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think there's going to be any surprises at 1, but let's get into the fun at pick 2. Gabe had the Charlotte Hornets taking Brandon Miller. Who would you have them taking?
Yeah, Can I clarify really quick?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they should take Brandon Miller. I just think that they're not the best front office necessarily, and they're going to draft for fit rather than for player ceiling. So, yeah, I think they should take Scoot, but, yeah, I think they'll end up with Brandon Miller.
No, I mean, you're not the only one that feels that way about that front office, Gabe. So, like, you're definitely not alone. If you're asking me, I think they should take Scoot. I have a tier break. So, I mean, just as we get into this, guys, my draft philosophy essentially is you draft based on a tier, and then within that tier, you can go fit, right? So I just talked about Victor being in his own tier. I have Scoot in his own tier as well. So whoever got the number 2 pick, I was going to say should take Scoot Henderson. Guys, if Detroit was picking number 2, I was ready to make the argument that they should take Scoot Henderson. At one point, I will admit this, though, if anybody listens to the podcast, at one point, I did have Brandon Miller in the same tier. And then at that point, you could make the argument of taking Brandon Miller. That was about a month ago. I was overthinking things. That's what we do this time of year. Scoot Henderson is in that tier by himself and should be the number 2 pick, in my opinion.
100%.
What is it about Scoot that puts him in that tier that's separate from like this 6'9" shot creating wing, which is like sort of what we want? No, I'm not saying I disagree with you, but what is it about Scoot that puts that guy in number 1 status if it wasn't for Victor Wembanyama?
And Connie, I'll say that's why I had Brandon Miller there for a little bit in the same tier. I had talked to some NBA scouts, and they're like, this is exactly what the NBA is looking for in Brandon Miller, right? And then just the more I thought about it, the more I went back to my own evaluation. Scoot, everybody talks about Scoot as an athlete, guys, right? Like he's a 6'2" power athlete. He is more than an athlete. The very first thing that impressed me about Scoot was the way he operated in ball screens. He had a feel for the game. He was snaking things. He just played with a certain pace. I think he is a true point guard that can run the show, but he's doing it. And I think it recently came out that he may actually be like 6'3", 6'4" in shoes, which is obviously how we play the game of basketball, in shoes. I don't know why we measure without shoes. It doesn't make any sense. Can we stop doing it? He has long arms. He's strong. I think he has some defensive versatility where he can guard more than just one position. And I just think he's that good. And while I agree with you, Connie, that this wing scorer is important, I think somebody to set the table and run your offense is also really important as well. And I just think he's that good. And there are some other questions around Brandon Miller.
Yeah, Scoot's got a little bit of that Chris Paul in him. He's got
exactly.
a little bit of Chris Paul in this game, and it's fun to watch.
I love it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about last week too. And another thing we touched on was, a lot of the people that do think that Charlotte is going to go with Brandon Miller. How do you see Scoot and LaMelo playing together?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. And that's where, like, even LaMelo shoots it okay, right? So why can't LaMelo play off the ball? It would be here. Think about it this way, guys. The only reason Detroit fans were questioning Scoot wasn't because they had one of Cade or Ivy. It's because they had both, right? Mm-hmm. Now, just think if they only had Cade. I don't think anybody would have been questioning the Scoot fit. Or especially if they only had Jaden Ivey, nobody would have been questioning it. So I think that's where I'm at. You only have one guy that really creates on the ball in LaMelo, then you definitely take Scoot if you think he's the better prospect in a different tier. So to me, I don't think there should be any questions unless, like you brought up, Connie, unless, you have those guys in the same tier. And there are people that do, and I wouldn't push back crazy on that, guys. If somebody thinks Brandon Miller's that good at 6'9" with the way he can shoot the ball, I would understand it. I just personally don't.
100%. I'm glad that we have someone like you that agrees with us as the Little Boy Pod. But obviously, does that mean that Portland would be taking Brandon Miller?
I do. And I do have Brandon Miller again in his own tier before I get to the next couple of guys. So at 3, and here's the thing, he's a really good fit as well. I mean, he fits into that. Well, I guess we don't know what they're going to do, but assuming they keep Dame and Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, Jeremy Grant resigns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You slot Brandon Miller in there just to catch and knock down jumpers. Here's the other thing about Brandon Miller. Coming into college, guys, he was really, really good from the mid-range. Like his knock was that, was he going to be able to shoot from 3? He just destroyed people in the mid-range. So he may have some more scoring ability than what he showed out at Alabama. Now, the big question is getting all the way to the rim, right? His finishing at the rim in the half court is really, really, really concerning. I think you just have to hope as he gets stronger and fills out that stuff gets better.
Mm-hmm. Connie, Gabe, you guys got anything to add before I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead, Gabe.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, when you mentioned Victor before, you said he's the only generational player. So I assume you don't take Scoot as generational, because that's kind of how I see him. He's the ideal A1 like lead point guard on a team. I think that doesn't come around too often. I mean, sure, he might not be Steph Curry level, but I could see him being kind of that, Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, kind of just below the superstars.
No, that's fair, Gabe. I'm glad you remember. I think it's probably how you define generational, right? And so just for me, I don't think Scoot is quite that label in terms of what I think of whenever I'm talking about a generational prospect. You're talking about LeBron James, Victor, somebody who combines an athletic profile with a skill set that is different than what we've seen. Like Giannis wasn't a generational prospect, but now he's turned into a generational talent because you're combining this body that's just a Greek god with a skill set and all of those things. And so while Scoot is very athletic and strong and all those things, he still is 6'3", 6'4", something like that. So could he turn into that? Yes, you're right there, Gabe. I just don't think I can call him a generational prospect, while maybe he could turn into a generational player at some point in his career.
That's fair. Connie, what did you want to say?
How do we feel about the recent report a couple hours ago is that Damian Lillard does not want a youth movement in Portland and wants to play with veterans? I feel like this pick is definitely on the way out. Do y'all?
I just think it's a mistake. If they trade this pick, it's such a mistake.
I don't agree with that, but like, I think it's one or the other at this point, right? Maybe he's setting up a move for himself.
What's the deal? Like, what are they gonna? I mean, I just wonder what player are they gonna get for number 3?
Zion?
Ooh. I mean, oh, that's the ultimate boomer bust move, right?
Big time.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean that leads right into my follow-up question: who does go up for that 3 pick? Right? Like, is it the Pelicans who really do? I mean, Scoot's off the board at this point, barring Charlotte taking Brandon Miller. But I had thrown around the idea of like Orlando going 6'11" and like Wendell Carter Jr. or something like that. I didn't know. And then
I think that'd be worth it for them, packaging 6 and 11 and somebody to go get a guy that you feel like is in a different tier than what they're going to get at 6. That's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, and then I was just trying to think of how to get Portland like a big, right?
But
like,
I don't know that Portland would do that, right? Like 6 and 11. But and this is where you get into the weeds, right? Is okay, 6'11", let's just stay with Wendell Carter Jr. You're right. They do need a big. I like that you get Wendell Carter Jr. there. And then can you package 6 and 11 if you're Portland to something else, like some other veteran wing player or something like that? Or maybe you take Grady Dick at 11, who doesn't have the same upside, but is a high field player, is going to come in and knock down shots. And so like, do you need a lot more scoring whenever or like on ball creation type of stuff, I guess, when you have Dame and those type of guys, like just let Grady stand in the corner, knock down shots and, those type of things. So that would be interesting. The Zion thing, Portland's at that point, right? Like, don't you just say screw it and do it? Like, just, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's take Zion. Because, dang, guys, Dame and Zion, Jeremy Grant, those guys, like.
Okay, but there's got to be more in that deal.
Yeah.
Portland side of things. Like, you're not getting Zion Williamson for the 3rd pick, even if he has, played a quarter of the games he could play.
Okay, but if you're the Pelicans, you're ready to move on. You would trade Zion for number 3 and Simons, right?
Yeah. Or Sharp.
I don't think Portland would put Sharp in there.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe that's not why I'm not an NBA GM. I wouldn't give up so easy on a guy that's just so dominant. And like obviously the injuries and his pretty funny personal stuff recently going out, but he's just so good. He is. It's like a healthy Zion Williamson is worth like 3.
Oh yeah.
I guess, yeah.
No, you're not wrong. I think the value of the number 3 pick in this draft is quite a bit, though, even compared to 3 future firsts. So think about what 3 future firsts mean. Could those end up in the lottery? Sure. What if it's next year's lottery where everybody says there's no star power and it's a weak draft, or they all end up in the 20s? So I think where you're getting a ton of value is it's the number 3 pick in this draft, and essentially who you're going to get, or at least one of 2 players that you're going to get. But you're not wrong, Connie. Like, and even Zion's on a really good contract if he stays healthy. So, he's not on the Bradley Beal $50 million contract. So, I think that's a good reminder too, as the GM of the Pelicans, you can't sell that low on, honestly, as we're talking about it, what was a generational talent it looked like coming into, his draft.
Agreed. I thought I read a report somewhere that said Portland was going after Bam too.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
Bam might be a Miami lifer.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Any other trade proposals at 3 before we move on to pick 4?
Yeah, Bogdanovich in number 5.
Fair.
What's funny is in some classes you may be able to do that, right? Because the difference between 3 and 5, but in this class you say that it's 2 spots and everybody's like, not a chance, So it's interesting.
Yeah, first draft in a long time, obviously, with the generational talent that we don't see. Like, Spurs may deal 1 pick. Like,
nobody even talks about that pick because we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, like there's no question. It's not if Victor plays for the Spurs. It's is he going to play in summer league or not?
Correct.
Like we're already a month ahead.
Yep.
But for the fourth pick, where do the Houston Rockets go for you, Bryce?
Yeah, so I'm taking Amin Thompson 10 times out of 10 if I'm the Houston Rockets. I am a big believer in Amin Thompson. I'm sure we'll talk plenty about the Thompson twins in general. We're going to talk about Asar either with the Pistons or at some point here during the episode. I think Amin is really good. I actually have a little bit of distance between him and Asar. I think he makes a lot of sense for Houston. I would give him the ball, let him run the show. I've even heard, even if I don't think they should go after James Harden, even if they do, it's not like James Harden is young. So eventually you're going to hand those keys over to somebody else anyway. I would take Amin Thompson.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into what you said earlier of like having tiers and then picking at the top of that tier for fit. Like if the Rockets had a dream scenario, I mean, if it wasn't Scoot Henderson, it's Amin Thompson.
I agree.
Gabe had Cam Whitmore going to the Rockets. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. So I've recently changed I used to have a tier with all 6 of these guys, and I think you guys could name them. It's the 6 guys everybody talks about in Pistons Twitter. I had them all in the same tier, and recently I put another line in there where it was Cam Whitmore and Amin Thompson, a little bit separated from those other 4 guys. And so I will just say that I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I don't love the fit as much, but if James Harden was coming and you knew that, because we all know tampering actually exists in the NBA, Cam Whitmore makes even more sense. So I like Cam Whitmore a lot. I will tell you guys this. If this stuff isn't smoke about the bad workouts and the bad intel, then I understand why Cam Whitmore would fall, though. Like there's some stuff coming out right now that was my biggest fear about Cam Whitmore, and I'm sure we're about to talk about it more. That does have me a little bit concerned, even though I've been a huge Cam Whitmore fan the last few weeks.
Yeah, and Gabe, feel free to correct me on any of these picks that I said. I'm going based off memory right now, so if I got it wrong, let me know.
No, I think I did say Amin Thompson at 4, but then I said as kind of the Fred VanVleet rumors come in and the James Harden rumors, where if they think they have like a point guard locked up in free agency, they might move to like the wing kind of player in Whitmore. I agree with Bryce. He's kind of redundant with Jabari Smith Jr. You might not get that's pretty much playing defense, hitting threes, and not really doing much else. I actually had Amin in a tier kind of with Brandon Miller.
Okay,
they both have like a huge weakness of like at the rim, half court finishing.
Shooting.
I'm kind of lower on Miller than most people. I just think he takes a lot of bad shots, misses a lot of shots, and like I don't know. It's a college system, so it's kind of hard, and like it's hard to get really easy shots for a wing like that if you're not like an A1 creator again. But I do see them like unless James Harden signs really early and they have like a promise, I think they will go with Amin at 4.
Yeah, I don't see a world where they don't. And I mean, I guess that leads into this next question. If the Rockets do shock the world and do not go Amin Thompson at 4, if you're the Pistons, do you take him at 5, Bryce?
I do. Well, let me backtrack. Who did they take it for?
For fun, we'll say Cam Whitmore.
Then yes, I would take Amin Thompson.
What if Cam was still on the board?
If they're both still on the board, I'm going to stick with I would take the better fit, which is Cam Whitmore. Again, I'm a little nervous, and we don't know what to believe. I'm a little nervous about the intel, like I said, because the thing with Cam Whitmore is the feel, right? And here's the other thing. He was not happy at Villanova. It didn't take watching the film very long to realize how much the coaching staff disliked him and how much he disliked playing on that team. And we could talk all day about whose fault that was. Was it the coaches? Was it his? Should he have done this? Should he have done that? You don't know the answer to that till you get that kid in your building. You watch film with him. You ask him questions. You put him through a workout and you ask him to do something and then see how he responds, if he can adjust quickly, those type of things. If the Pistons truly did that and they came away not confident with his feel for the game of basketball, then he drops down my board. Like he drops out of this behind quite a few guys, because having that low a feel for the game isn't just concerning offensively, it's concerning defensively as well. To answer what you wanted to get into, though, sorry.
No, I love it.
I would be excited as a coach about Amin Thompson. I think it would be so much fun to try to figure out Jaden, Cade, and Amin offensively. I think defensively, there's no concerns. It would take a lot of sacrifice. It would take a lot of putting egos in check, unselfishness, but I truly think those three guys could work. But again, that comes down to intel. Is Amin willing to play that role? Is Jaden willing to play that much off the ball that he would have to? Would Cade give up some on-ball primary initiator reps? And if you got any inclination that they weren't, then you might have a little bit of trouble on your hands. My gut tells me all those guys would be willing to sacrifice, though.
Yeah, and that kind of leads right into how Troy earlier today at a press conference said he takes a swing on the person, not just the player.
Yep.
And even at the Monty Williams press conference, him and Troy, Monty said Troy told him, and Monty said it himself, they'll put our locker room against any other locker room in the league. So if that is the number one concern, I'd say it's not even a concern at all, because we have some, according to what we've heard, some great guys in this locker room, which leads into kind of what Troy said. Troy Weaver in a press conference today, tweeted out by Brendan Dent of Woodward Pistons, said, Troy Weaver said, I like the long ball. I'm not trying to slap it into short center. I'm going to take a big swing. I'm going for the big fly. Bryce, you retweeted this and said your slap to center was Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks, Anthony Black, and your home run swings would be the Thompson twins and Cam Whitmore. So if two of those three, Thompsons and Whitmore are on the board, is it safe to say, intel regardless, you would take one of those three with the fifth pick?
Yeah, I'm a little lower on Asar. I want to get into this. It finally hit me today with that tweet, guys, why I have a disconnect with Jarris Walker and a lot of Pistons fans. Like, I'm a little bit lower. I think I have Walker third on my Pistons board. So it's not like I'm crazy low. Like, it's not like I'm just like, oh my gosh. But I don't see, and this is the hard thing with ceilings too. And I should have known this whenever I tweeted it out. I was just trying to have some fun, and I appreciate all of the engagement. Don't get me wrong. I love the engagement. That's what Twitter is for. I wouldn't tweet it out if I didn't want people to comment and quote tweet and all of that stuff. So don't take this the wrong way, but ceiling conversations are so hard because it's like, well, everybody has some sort of high ceiling, right? It's about what's the percentage that you can actually get there. What are the ifs but I didn't realize the ceiling that a lot of people saw for Jarris Walker. And so it's kind of opened my eyes to that and makes me wonder, what am I missing with this kid? Because I don't see him as much of a perimeter wing type of player as he is. I see him more as a 4-5 than a 4-3, or I would guess some people see him as a true 3. And if that's the case, like if he can shoot it and handle it and be that versatile defensively, then yeah, sure. I understand the upside and he maybe should be the top of the big board. I don't see that as much. And so that's where my disconnect is a little bit with that. Asar, I think, has a crazy ceiling, guys. I just think I question whether he gets there a lot more than whether I question Amin gets there. Man, there's some rough numbers I could give you about Asar that's tough. So
fire him. We want to hear the numbers.
No, it's just like the 40% in the half court on layups and the total number of rim attempts in the half court. He wasn't that good in the mid range. Like those type of things are even the shooting numbers. And I know somebody came at me and the numbers are real about how much better his shooting got throughout the season. But still, the overall shooting numbers aren't that much better than Amin. Like they're just a little bit better. So as much as we question Amin's jump shot and everybody doesn't think it's going to be there, I feel like we give Asar a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Now, he did shoot more. It looks like he's more willing to shoot. So I can buy into Asar. It sounds like there's a lot of steam around Asar right now.
Yeah, there is. And his performance in the Overtime Elite playoffs, I think he shot like 40% from three, is kind of what's driving everyone like, oh, see, he changed. He's better. But you never know. I mean, like you said, it's all down to intel and workouts at this point. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week during Gabe's mock. But Gabe, you had Jarris Walker coming to us, right?
No, I had a Cam Whitmore,
You
but
had Cam.
I am interested in the intel you said, Bryce, about what Cam Whitmore the concerning stuff is, because I've been going back and forth, and my other guy that I actually really like on our team is Asar Thompson.
Okay.
I do think he can develop his 3-point shot a little earlier than if
I think it's fair.
than
Yeah.
than Amon if he even can. And like the sacrifice thing you mentioned, I don't really want Cade off the ball. I think
Sure.
Cade is that guy, and he's more talented than Amon Thompson, than Jaden Ivey. So I just think like I'd much rather have a pure wing. That's kind of where I ended up going with Cam Whitmore, just because of the catch and shoot 3-pointer, the defense, the size. But again, like if you admit, like I haven't heard much intel like of the concerning stuff other than his lack of feel for the game.
Yeah.
Is there
So
anything else?
no, that was pretty much it. But I think that's really concerning if it's true again, and who knows what the Pistons are trying to do, who's putting the information out. I'm just saying you could see the feel for the game on film, right? When we watch the college tape, the assist percentage, all of that stuff. I'm just saying if they brought him in for a workout and then it was like, oh, that wasn't just Villanova, this was truly on Cam Whitmore. Now I'm concerned because I'm with you, Gabe. I like a lot of what Cam Whitmore does. I know a lot of people like want to compare him to Sadiq Bey, and I'm like, no. He's crazy better athlete. He's a better on-ball defender. I think he's going to shoot it just as good as Sadiq Bey, and he's going to get downhill and pressure the rim with athleticism that would probably be top of the class if it wasn't for the Thompson twins. Now, what I want to say about Asar is if you are out on Cam Whitmore, let's say Troy Weaver, the intel is bad, and they're like, we can't take Cam Whitmore. Asar makes a lot of sense if you want a true wing, right? You want to slot this guy in at the 3 who can defend, cut off the ball, those type of things. That makes a lot of sense to me than to, that Asar Thompson is much more in play.
Yeah, and Connie and Amit can attest to this. I was really high on Hendricks early in the process, but like, yeah, as it like developed more and more, my belief in Stu is really strong, and I just kind of think Stewart is what Hendricks can be, I guess, or he's developing into what he can be. So that's why like him, and then you mentioned Jarris Walker as well. I see much more as a 4, a small ball 5 that would fit well in like an Indiana system or something like that.
Well,
where we have Stewart, and that's like that's the main thing driving away. Even though I love Hendricks and Walker, Stewart is just like we already have that guy, I think.
Yeah, I like Jarris Walker, and I think what he would do is very valuable, right? I mean, I think Aaron Gordon has been a comp for him that's come up recently, and I actually truly like that. Like, I think it's a really interesting comp. I don't know that he guards on the perimeter as much. Again, that's my hiccup. And some people think he's like super versatile, going to be able to guard 1 through 5. And I guess if he's truly all of those things, then yeah, like my evaluation is off and I'm going to be eating my words. And I think at this point, I'm just comfortable with that. Everybody sees the game a different way. That's the beauty of the game of basketball. We can all watch the same game and come away with different outcomes, but I just don't see that as much. And I don't think a 4-5 that I believe Walker is quite as valuable as someone like Cam or Asar or those type of guys, and what they can do.
So based on that, you would, and that kind of leads into kind of my follow-up to the follow-up, you would not take Taylor Hendricks at 5. You have all these guys above him, like a lot of people.
So actually, I have Asar at the bottom. So I guess that contradicts what I just said. I had Asar at the bottom. Here's why I had Asar at the bottom, though, is like, I'm going to take Cam or Amin if one of those guys is going to be on the board. So why do I need Asar, that high? So essentially, I think my board was Cam, Amin, Walker, and Hendricks, and then Anthony Black and Asar. And kind of the reason for that is if I'm going to take Anthony Black, I would rather just take Amin. He's a better version of Anthony Black to me. If I'm going to take Asar, if I want a true wing, well, why wouldn't I just take Cam Whitmore? Now, again, if the intel is that bad on Cam Whitmore, then now all of a sudden Asar maybe moves up the board, because if Cam Whitmore intel is that bad, now Asar moves up the board if I truly want like a true wing type of player. So I just don't know like how valuable, Gabe brings up a good point. Where's Stu at in this? How much do you believe in him? Do you need to add another 4 or 5 like Hendricks and Walker are?
I don't feel a great need to pick up another 4 or 5, but I will say that Jarris Walker is the number 1 guy on my list. And
okay.
The reason I say that is along with like having some off the dribble pop and a jumper, I think one of his like most intriguing talents is quick decision making.
Sure.
The man can rifle a really cool pass. He could do it in a short period of time. And I think in Troy Weaver's recent the press conference, he talked about how Monty Williams is heavily involved in the draft process this year, and Jarris Walker just screams a Monty Williams guy. And I've always liked the model of having 5 dudes that can attack and make decisions, rather than like really separating it into roles. And I'm going to make this 4 a play finisher, jump shooter. My big man's going to set screens. My guards are going to do guard things. I like this model of having 5 dudes that can shoot, dribble, and score, or score, dribble, and pass, I guess would be more apt, not just shoot, because Duran's not a shooter, but I believe he can move the ball and create on his own. And having a 5-headed monster, I think when it's winning time is just so valuable that like you can't cut off all the water because the water is coming from 5 valves instead of 1. And that's why I think Jarris Walker, even though Stu has improved a lot as a playmaker, he is more of a role player to me, and I think a very valuable one with a nice upcoming jump shot and a defensive doggedness. But I think Jarris Walker is going to be a winning player for a really long time, and I'd love that on the Pistons.
No, and I will say this, like, I think there's a good fit there. I think if you draft Jarris or Taylor, though, like, I think it's probably time to trade. And I know it doesn't make sense, but Bagley or Wiseman or something. I mean, I guess you can have them on there, but sure. I don't mind a 3 big man rotation at all of Stewart, Walker. I think you would start Walker with Jalen Duren and then Stu as that 3rd big, which I think is probably his ultimate role anyway. So I'm okay with that. I think this may just come down to like value for me and how much I think Jarris kind of raises things compared to a wing like Cam Whitmore would. So, and again, what I think Amin Thompson is. So, no, I think Jarris is a really good player. I think everything you said is really true. And I just want to say, I guess it's out on YouTube right now. Wednesday morning, the podcast version will be out. I said, I think Detroit takes Jarris Walker. Like, I think that's who the pick is going to be, because the intel is he's a great kid, hard worker, like all of those things you feel like you hear Troy Weaver say. That's what people say about Jarris Walker.
Yeah. Could just say one more thing that I would be happy with any one of these prospects, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, we're not going to end up picking at 5. I think we are going to trade. I threw in a trade today that Connie said please no to. It's the swapping 5 for 9 and 16, I believe it was, from the Jazz. I just think this is a really deep draft where you can kind of get a position at need, fill a role that needs to be filled, and find like a player who has that like hardworking grit pretty far, like up to like 18 maybe in the draft, where I could see like a Grady Dick who'd be a perfect like long-term 3 as like a 4th option starting, a 5th option, and then I don't know, maybe a Cason Wallace if he falls, or that what's that guy on UConn, the shooter,
Jordan Hawkins.
Yeah, I'm really high on Jordan Hawkins. I think he's being undervalued extremely. And then, as you mentioned last podcast off air, Buffkin, I think he might sneak into the top 10. He doesn't have any weaknesses and a lot of strengths. So I just think number 5 is valuable, but if you have 2 bites at the apple, like we did with that one year where we got Sadiq and Isaiah kind of later in the draft, I think it could be another one of those options. And I think that's ultimately what ends up happening.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's what's made the conversation around this pick so interesting is, like, truly, guys, if you told me I told you guys a little bit ago that right now Asar is 6 out of 6 on my list, right? And I kind of explained why, that if I was going to take a wing, I would just take Cam. If I want, a super athlete, I'll just take his brother, and either one of those guys should be available. But if you told me they took Asar, like, I would get it. I would find myself excited about it. If they took Jarris Walker, I'd be excited about it. I think that would be an incredible front line of those 3 guys, like I just outlined. So I think you're right. That's a really good point, Gabe, that I think you can walk away with a player you're going to feel good about. So then it's, well, if I trade back to 9, I'm still guaranteed one of those guys. We haven't even talked about Anthony Black. I think Anthony Black is really, really good and is probably a higher floor than Amin. Again, I don't think it's his highest ceiling, but Anthony Black is a really good player, has the highest feel IQ in the class. So, Connie, what you were talking about, keeping the ball moving, that's something Anthony Black does really, really well and really flow into that system. Let me throw this back at you then, Gabe. Instead of 16, what if you traded for 9 and a future first round pick? Say 2025, the Jazz have 3 first round picks. There's the Cavs and the Timberwolves. And you say, we want the best of the 2025 first round picks.
I wouldn't mind that either. That might be too far down the line of when we're trying to be competitive. That's the only drawback I'd see in that trade. But again, like 2 picks, better than 1 usually. Jazz are probably going to be pretty good. They usually always are. So it's probably going to be like a mid-lottery pick again. Yeah,
but you have the Timberwolves one in there too. Like that has the potential in 2 years
true.
from now to decom. Here's why I like the idea of future. Eventually, the Pistons are going to lose a first round pick. Like they're going to lose that pick to the Knicks eventually. If they don't, then it's going to be a long 5 years for all of us, because that means Detroit's never picking outside of the top 10 or whatever the protections are. Right? They slowly scale out. So I just like the idea of some future assets, because I'm all about sustained success. Like I don't want this just to be a one time. Like I want them to continue to be good for multiple years, and maybe that's too forward thinking. I also worry about adding 3 rookies to this group, this young group. Like, do you have enough attention for 3 guys? Because I think they can get somebody quality at 31 as well.
My biggest issue with the 5 for 9 to 16 is if you look back through like the draft, it's always nice to say like, oh, there's just 2 picks in the first round. But if you look back at like all the picks, like 10 through 15, that range, it's a miss most of the time, or you're picking up a mid player most of the time. Like those are pretty low odd success picks, and just trading away from a possible like hard hit into, we're picking in that Pistons range. I talked about this before. That's the Pistons range for the past decade. That's what we've been picking, man. 8 to 12, 9 to 16. That's where the Pistons picked and got absolutely nowhere for a long time. And I just always would prefer to have the higher pick. Like 9 and 16, there's a solid chance both of those guys are just mediocre players that don't get to their second rookie extension.
I got a lot of flack for posting Bojan and Bagley or something for number 10 from Dallas. That's another option to get kind of another late lottery pick. Their subreddit hated that trade and they roasted me. But now
Mavericks did?
Yeah. And now I'm seeing a lot more like smoke from like NBA reporters that's kind of, it's been talked about. It's at least been like thought about. I think will be a win-win kind of. I mean, if Taylor Hendricks is there at 10 or Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins, I think that's another avenue that we could pursue. And I think Troy Weaver will, because like they're going to move that pick like more than likely. And I think we have some assets that they could use at the end of the day.
I talked to a guy who covers the Mavs and is a big time draft guy. I threw out, 31 Bojan and Wiseman for 10 Bertans and Tim Hardaway Jr. And I felt like he thought that was a pretty good deal.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, I'd like that as well. I mean, Hardaway's that shooter. that we want. 31, I think. I mean, we haven't talked about it yet, but I think it's extremely valuable in this draft, especially if we want to have that guaranteed contract. And there's all, like I said, I think this is a really deep draft without a lot of like top end talent aside from, Victor and Scoot, where there's like legitimate players well into the second round this year. So I mean, I'd love to keep that pick, but if it means another pick at the lottery, which is that where we got Duran last year? Was he picked number 10?
He was 13, I believe.
13, yeah, right? Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I mean, Weaver can find a guy. If he likes a guy, I think he'll go out and make a deal to make sure he gets him.
I would say you get 2 of the 6 guys we've talked about, right? We've essentially. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I said it last week. I would do a backflip if that happened.
Yeah, I think Kobe, Grady Dick, somebody. I find it hard to believe the NBA draft actually goes with the top 9 guys that essentially every Twitter, whatever NBA draft person has put out there. Essentially everybody has the same top 9 guys. Maybe Anthony Black isn't that, but if I got Anthony Black at 10, I would be pretty excited about that, So I think there's a real chance you could get 2 of the 6 guys, Thompson twins, Whitmore, Walker, Hendricks, and Black. I think you get 2 of those 6. I would feel pretty good about that. THJ replaces some of the shooting with Boyan. I realize it's not the same level. The contract's not bad. Only has 1 more year after this year. Bertans, I guess, could play some minutes off the bench if you really wanted him to. If not, he's essentially an expiring contract with how his contract works. I think it's if he doesn't play 75% of the games, then it's only like $5 million guaranteed or something. So there'd be a little bit of dead money, but I'm just saying, those contracts aren't bad to take back. You clean up the big man room a little bit. I like the idea of Boyan on this team, but you still have $30 million in cap space to go out and sign, some sort of veteran floor spacer at the 3-4. So that's the one that I think I would be most excited about, because you could get 2 of the 6 guys we're talking about.
100% agree with that. That was the trade I had my eye on, hoping from the start. If we couldn't flip 5 for 6 and 11, it would be trading Boyan. Hopefully, I'd rather keep Wiseman over Bagley, but Boyan, one of Wiseman or Bagley, either way, I think they both could provide something. And whoever for and 31 for 10 Bertans and Hardaway. My question when we brought that up is, can we afford to lose Boyan's offensive ability? And like you said, Hardaway can't fulfill exactly Boyan's shoes, but he could fulfill some of it. So it makes the hit a little bit less. So you're increasingly liking it.
I think you still have to go sign a 3-4 to replace him, though.
Yeah.
Even if it's, my thing is, I've said this a few times. I don't know who the player, maybe go give someone a 1-year ridiculous $25 million overpay. Maybe Grant Williams just wants to make money for 1 year. Go sign him for 1 year, $25 million. Even though it's an overpay, it's only for 1 year, and push the cap space down the road or something. And maybe it's not Grant Williams. I don't have the name for sure. I don't know that you want to start 2 rookies alongside Ivy, Duran, and Cade. I don't know that that's the recipe to win. I mean, don't get me wrong. That would be a lot of fun. Just in terms of fun, that would be a lot of fun. I don't know how many games you necessarily win, but I think you would want to go sign someone in that to play the 3-4, that wing forward position that can still score the ball and space the floor a little bit to replace a little bit of what Boyan did. And I just think you could do it in free agency, even if you had to way overpay for somebody.
Would you say Jeremy Grant?
I mean, I would take Jeremy Grant at the right price, but that would be on a long-term contract. I would, if I was going to do Jeremy Grant, I would want him on 4 years.
No, I see what you're saying. 1 year.
Yeah. I'm saying a 1 year overpay. This has always stuck with me. Keith Smith, who's come on the pod a few times, he's always said you can't overpay somebody for 1 year, essentially. So that's what I'm saying. The Pistons have $30 million in cap space. If they don't have a Jeremy Grant that they want to sign long-term, overpay some guy for 1 year to come in and just fill the void you need him to, And then you have that salary cap space the next year to really do what you want to do with it. The example is the 76ers with JJ Redick one off season, gave him a 1 year, $20 million contract. Was he worth $20 million? No, but they had the cap space they needed to use anyway. And he filled a role of coming in and spacing the floor.
I really like the Grant Williams idea, even though like it wasn't your like the guy you were thinking of, but like you said it, and I really liked it. But
what about a Kyle Kuzma?
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
I was gonna just
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know that he spaces the floor quite as much, but yeah, if Kuzma doesn't go get the long-term deal, let's say the market dries up on Kuzma and you can bring him in for 1 year. And I mean, it's probably gonna be like 25 million. Like I said, I'm okay with that. Like, what about Kelly Oubre? Just bring in Kelly Oubre for 1 year, overpay him and let him bang a bunch of threes and keep the floor space.
I wouldn't mind that actually.
He makes every shot against the Pistons. Surely he's going to make some with the Pistons.
Yeah, like the odds are in our favor on that one. No, I'm all for that. But like, that's why this draft is so interesting to me. Like when I got over the pain of not getting in the top 3, not getting the 1 pick, I started looking at these guys and I'm like, imagine. And then the Boyan rumors come out. It's like, imagine if we get 2 cracks at the apple with this, like Gabe said earlier, right? And Connie, one of you guys said that like we got like we got Stu at 16, we got Bay at 19, we got Duran at 13. Imagine getting a 10 pick. Like Troy Weaver knows how to find some guy that can at least be serviceable in some sort of way to a team. And I think getting 2 guys, I don't, like you said, Bryce, I don't think we can start 2 rookies at the same time, but longevity wise, like I would love it. No question. I guess that leads us to pick 6 after a long delay. I think Gabe had the Magic taking Amen Thompson, right, Gabe?
No, I had Anthony Black.
I was
Amen Thompson went at 4. Then I had Anthony Black. Right. I agree with everything Bryce said about him. I agree with. I just think he's a bit of a non-spacer for the Pistons to draft him, which is why I think he falls to 4. But Orlando Magic will gladly take a smart, strong, big point guard.
So where have I took Cam at 5, right? So is that essentially what
same technically? Yeah.
The Magic are weird, man. I like Anthony Black. Let's just stay there because I think what you might get there is he may end up running the show for them. And he's probably a good fit to be like the quote unquote point guard for Orlando because the offense is going to run through Paolo and Franz a lot anyway, literally as lead initiators. But Anthony Black plays off the ball really well also. That's why I like him. Like, that's why I think he could fit in Detroit if, for whatever reason. I don't think I would take him at 5, but so no, I like that. That I'll say, I think Orlando's really interesting, but yeah, let's stay with Anthony Black there at 6.
And then 7 to the Pacers. I think you had Jarris Walker.
Yeah,
he's
too good of a player to drop anymore. I think it's just ideal for them. Him and Miles Turner, they could work really well as kind of an interior, exterior defensive pair. Like they can both kind of space Turner much more than Walker at this point. I just think it would be an amazing team to watch. I'll be watching a lot of them if they do draft him.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm in. We're in lockstep on this. I like it. Part of this is also because I want to save this next player for the Wizards at 8 because I just think it makes a lot of sense. So, yeah,
Who do you have? I'm interested to hear.
8 to the Wizards?
Yeah.
Yeah, if the board fell like this, I would take Asar Thompson and I wouldn't think twice about it.
Exactly.
I just, especially with what just happened with the Bradley Beal trade, I would swing for the fences. Again, I'm a little lower on Asar because I question how well he puts pressure on the rim, even for as athletic as he is. I question how well he finishes at the rim, even for as athletic as he is. I know how good he could be defensively, but both of those guys have some growing pains, in my opinion. I think they've developed some bad habits. I don't know how to properly evaluate the OTE. I understand people just, they were 20-year-old playing against 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. I know a lot of those kids were high-level, high school basketball players, but there's still some context around it. With that said, I still think they're going to be really good players. And we've talked a lot about intel on this podcast, guys. Everybody I've talked to said these two kids are amazing kids, incredible young men, hard workers, all of that stuff. If I'm the Washington Wizards, I'm buying into that. I'm buying into the upside, and I'm letting Asar get out of the shadow of his brother Amin and see if he can just truly shine.
Yeah, I think so. I think last week on the pod we were talking about what the Wizards should go with, and we didn't know the Bradley Beal news last week, obviously, but we said they gotta swing big because they've been stagnant for so long. They need somebody to kind of push them into that next generation of Wizard basketball. And now that the Beal trade is, I think it's time for that. So I think Asar at 8 makes perfect sense. Connie, anything to add?
No, not to this. Y'all got it pretty well.
Yeah, I think so. All right, we're at 9. Gabe had the perfect pick for the Utah Jazz at 9, but Bryce, who did you have at 9?
Yeah, I don't love this, but I have to stick to my draft philosophy. So I have to take Taylor Hendricks here because he is the last guy in my tier. And I don't want to break tiers to, find a better fit. And I don't even know, like, I would rather give them a creation guard, somebody that, on the perimeter. But I think there's some intrigue of Taylor Hendricks and Walker Kessler. Like, good luck trying to score on those two at the rim with what they do. Walker Kessler playing drop, Taylor Hendricks being an off-ball rim protector. I know that puts Lowry back at the 3, which I don't know if he'll like or not, but I can't break my draft philosophy right now. I've only been doing this for a couple of years. It's what I believe for now. Maybe this eventually changes, but I can't break tiers. So I'll have to take Taylor Hendricks.
Gabe, you had Grady Dick, right?
Yeah, I did. Pretty much just because he's a little bit more of a 3 than Hendricks is, and I think they really believe in Mark Cannon as a 4, and not to put him back in that Cleveland situation that you mentioned, but also I think Cason Wallace could very well be a pick here.
Love it.
Yeah, I just think he's not quite the primary point guard that this team might need.
I agree. Both of those are good names. They're both in my next tier. Cason Wallace is actually the next player on my board, so I wouldn't have any qualms with either of those guys, Gabe. Like I said, it's just kind of my draft philosophy and kind of where I have my tier breaks for right now.
So let's move on to Dallas. Who do the Mavericks take at 10, Bryce?
So this is another one. I know everybody loves to mock Derek Lively, right? He's not in this tier for me. And so I actually think I would take Grady Dick and just give them some shooting, let him play off of Kyrie and Luka. You're not going to guard anybody. Although I think Grady Dick is going to be a good team defender because he has a really good feel for the game, but just provide some floor spacing there. I think I would just go with Grady Dick here.
I don't argue with that. I thought the Mavericks would I said it last week too. I thought they would just take Derek Lively just because they need the Derek Lively. But I think Luka penetrating or Kyrie and kicking out to Grady Dick is just very scary.
Gabe, who did Gabe have here?
Taylor Hendricks. I think if he does drop to 10, if the Jazz take Dick, I think the Mavs won't trade this pick, and that he's just ideal fit. Interior defense, 3-point shooting, and I agree with you. Lively, I have some concerns. I don't think he showed that much in college. He's not really in my lottery. He's just a bit raw. I think he's too much. He's more Willie Cauley-Stein than a big dominant big, I think.
Sure. No, I forgot you still had Hendricks on Hendricks. I mean, if Hendricks comes to 10, I think that's a
dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Who do the Magic take at 11, Bryce?
So we took Anthony Black was the pick earlier.
Yep. He went to the Magic at 6.
What do you do with the Magic, man? Let's give him some shooting. This is my guy. You guys mentioned him earlier. Let's give him Jordan Hawkins and just let Jordan run around. And you have all of these other guys that can create, and Franz and Paolo and, even Anthony Black. Good luck then trying to keep track of Jordan Hawkins as well. So I'm going to go Jordan Hawkins there. Jordan Hawkins might be my favorite player, just favorite. I'm not talking about talent, just my favorite player in the draft.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, like you can basically quote what you said is what I wrote. I think he's closer to Klay Thompson than like a JJ Redick. He's like elite at shooting, and then with like Banchero, France, Fultz, and Anthony Black, if he did end up going at six, they're all passers. They can all move. They all screen and see who's open. If, like you said, if he's running around with that interior presence that they have, that can be a lethal, long term, really good starting two for them there.
Yep, I like it.
Oklahoma City at 12, Bryce.
I'm gonna go Bilal Coulibaly just because it's like the Thunder thing, right? To take this kid. I do. Here's the thing. I do think Bilal's actually good. You know, I think there's some worry. Oh, Metropolitans 92 are the only team playing right now, and I understand that. When I turned on the film, I was like, holy cow, this kid can defend. Like, he's young, he's playing with grown men, and he's defensively communicating, pointing out switches, making rotations. He's athletic, he's long. The offense has a long ways to come. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's a day one contributor. I think the big thing with a lot of these guys, right, is the shot. I think his shot is slow, but I think the form is okay. And I would rather have to speed up a shooting form than completely rework the mechanics altogether. So I guess I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on this one. And it just seems like the Thunder's thing to do to draft Bilal Coulibaly.
100%. Gabe, who'd you have at 12?
Yeah, I actually had Coulibaly going the next pick to the Raptors at 13.
Okay. That's a really interesting fit for him there, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like exactly what they want. You know, that's the type of player he is. At 12, even more Kool-Aid, if you will. Leonard Miller for the Thunder. They like taking those high upside picks. I have no idea what he is or what he's going to be, but it's intriguing, his skill set, his size.
It is.
So, I mean, you know, if there's a team that picks him this high in the draft, it would be the Thunder, I think.
Gabe, let me pitch Leonard Miller to you this way. And maybe you already see him this way, but as opposed to Leonard Miller being a wing who maybe can shoot and maybe can have plus passing and stuff, what about Leonard Miller as like a big, not necessarily a 5, but like a 4, possible undersized 5? Now, all of a sudden, to me, Leonard Miller's versatility and passing and potential shooting and all of that stuff is a lot more intriguing whenever you think of him that way. And this wasn't an original idea by me, so I'm not taking credit for this. This is from listening to other people talking about him and then seeing the vision of him, of that archetype of player. What do you think about that? Sorry, as my phone rings, I apologize, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's more of the player comp I had was like a Pascal Siakam kind of crafty inside guy. Yeah. And he's more of a big than a small, I guess. The skill set isn't quite there, but I did like, I don't know if I could, I don't know who the Thunder would start anyway at 4 other than, I mean, they have Chet at the 5. Jalen Williams, I guess, would be their 4. I could see like a big pairing of Chet and Miller who can both pass, kind of handle, kind of do it all. That would be fun to watch. And like, if they develop the right way, that could be like the new modern skill set they want, I guess.
Connie,
I agree.
Connie, that's your 5 right there, man. SGA, Jalen Williams, the wing Jalen Williams, Josh Giddey, Leonard Miller, and Chet. Like, that's exactly what you were talking about earlier, Connie, of those 5 guys that just, everybody can pass, everybody can shoot a little bit, you know, everybody can put it on the deck a little bit. That's your squad right there.
Yeah, and if Troy Weaver comes from that Thunder family.
Okay.
So it's all coming full circle. Yeah, I love that. I love that OKC team, and I love the way they. I think they outperform their talent by having those guys that can just ball in so many different ways, and of course having SGA. Yeah,
that's gonna be a big team too if they do take Leonard Miller. You got Giddey, Shea, Miller, Chet. I mean, Dortch is small at like 6'4". Like,
but he plays big. I mean,
he plays big, exactly. Like, or if you want to put Pokachevsky in there just for height purposes, like that's a huge team.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to 13. Gabe said he had Coulibaly at 13.
Yep.
I can't say his name. Bryce, who do you have at 13?
Yeah, let's go Case and Wallace here. I have a lot of guards in this tier. So Wallace, Hawkins, a couple other guys, Keontae George, and then Kobe Buffkin, who we're about to talk about also. But I really like Case and Wallace. I think he's, in terms of like guards, he's the best defender in the class for me. Doesn't have quite as much versatility as some of these wings, like the Thompson twins or whatever, because he's just not as big. But I think he can really defend. I think you can play him off the ball a little bit because he can shoot. So I think for Toronto, even though he may be a little short for them, he's big enough to fit into kind of their idea and vision. And then if they're going to put the ball in Pascal's hands, in Scotty Barnes' hands, et cetera, Kaysen can just play off the ball, knock down shots, and then be the primary perimeter defender on the other end. So I think he's probably a better fit for Toronto than my guy, Kobe Buffkin, or even Keontae George.
Can you rank your guys in this draft defensive? Let's go top three defenders in this draft. You have Wallace at the top.
Well, overall or just on the perimeter?
Let's go overall.
Well, Victor's the best defender in the class.
Okay, Victor excluded.
Here's what, just real quick though. I think people are underestimating his impact defensively. He is so tall, so long. He's mobile. I realize like he's gonna get dunked on early in the season by some just Joel Embiid or something, and people are gonna put it on Twitter like, oh, look at him, generational, blah blah blah. Like, yeah, he's skinny right now, but it's gonna be so hard to run pick and roll against him because he can defend too so well. So defenders, I think Anthony Black is a really good defender. Kaysen Wallace, Bilal Coulibaly. As I go through, Omax Prosper is a guy as you get later in the first round. I really, really like Omax. James Najee is a big that is really good defensively, not very good offensively, but really good defensively. Colby Jones.
Is he Zeke's brother? Zeke Najee's brother?
I don't believe so. But it is spelled the same. So
sorry, yeah. You can continue.
No,
that was just
It's funny that you asked that because I know whenever I first saw it, I thought about it and I never looked it up. And then I've never heard anybody else say it. So now you have me intrigued. It doesn't look like it. I mean, if you go by Wikipedia, I know in school they tell you Wikipedia. He does have a sister that plays and had an uncle that played at Florida, but it doesn't look like a relation between Zeke and James. So, and then the Thompson twins, to answer, like, again, I think they have some growing pains because I think they have some bad habits they've developed. So it just really comes down to how quickly they get rid of those.
Would you say gambling is one of their bad habits, trying to jump the passing lanes and stuff?
So that's hard, right? Like there's a fine line between gambling and just having a really good feel for the game, because creating those turnovers is a legit thing, right? Like there's real value to that. My bigger concerns with them is inconsistency. As good as they can be on the ball, it's like, why did they ever get beat off the bounce? And I can find you clips where they got beat off the bounce. And
I can think of like two in my head. Yeah.
Or just awful closeout fundamentals. Or one of my biggest things I think they're going to have to learn is they would help and rotate when it wasn't their rotation. And it's because they were so athletic, they could get away with it. So they weren't the low man. They would rotate on the weak side, but because they were so athletic, they were still able to recover to their man and contest the shot. I just don't think they get away with those things in the NBA when it's an NBA pass, an NBA shooter on the weak side, those type of things. Again, if you really buy the intel, I think you believe that they learn those things and grow from them pretty quickly. But I do think that there's going to be some things that they have to adjust and overcome. But obviously the physical tools, the feel, project for some pretty high level defenders.
That's interesting. If you saying like them not being the role man and like going out, like that's kind of what the Celtics did. And I'm kind of curious to see like if they let the Thompson twins do that in the playoffs, like just let them sag off of a shooter and then run back to them. That just is really intriguing now that you mention it.
And like I said, they were playing in OTE where they were always up by 30, so none of it mattered. And here's when I want to give them a pass. Like if you listen to people talk about Scoot Henderson, people give Scoot a pass for his G League season because they say he was bored. He wasn't playing for anything. He wasn't playing for a championship, etc. Well, the Thompson twins may have been bored also because they were just kicking the crap out of everybody in that league. So if we're going to say it for Scoot, then I feel like we have to say it for the Thompson twins also.
Yeah. What's fair is fair. Before we jump into any other talk about everybody, before we round out the pod, how do you round out your lottery with the 14th pick and the New Orleans Pelicans?
Yeah, I'm taking my guy, Kobe Buffkin. Like you alluded to earlier, we had a conversation about Kobe the last time I came on. I guess I didn't realize it wasn't on the pod. I guess we talked about it off air. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it after the air.
Okay. So I've been on Kobe all year, as you guys know. And when Jet went down, he got a chance to show it even more. I think Kobe's really good. He's probably 6'5", 6'6" with shoes, long finishes around the rim. I think he competes his butt off defensively. I am embarrassed that I didn't mention him as we just went through some of the best defenders in the class, because he absolutely is. And
he's
so add him to that list. You know, there is a little bit of what is his elite skill. That's probably why I don't, as much as I like him, I don't even have him top 10. Is he's really good at a lot of things, doesn't have any major flaws, but what is his elite thing? And sometimes that can be good, but sometimes that can be bad as well. So I think right here at 14 is a really good spot, like almost a CJ McCollum replacement eventually for the Pelicans.
I can see that. And this is the first official Buffs On apology for him, and it goes out to Bryce because we dismissed him when he said Kobe. We all said nah. But I was watching film on him before we got on here, and Michigan ran a lot of they'll run a pin down and then him coming to his left hand coming down the lane, and it was kind of hard to stop him when they did that.
Yep.
And if you got Zion setting a screen for Buffkin, if he can just hug it, it's really nothing you can do.
Yep. No, I like him. What are you guys' thoughts, Connie and Gabe? Where are you guys at on Buffkin?
Yeah, I'm extremely high on him now. I think he could even sneak into the top 10, depending on, how teams value the no weaknesses thing. And I think he does have an elite skill. It's rim finishing, his layups, his close range floaters, through contact, over tall defenders. That's elite for a guard his size. It may not be completely translatable to NBA with the athletes and the size we have there, but still, I think that's a skill you can bet on when you compare it to the Thompson twins or Brendan Miller. It's nice to be able to have a guy that can score on all three levels.
That's more than fair, Gabe, because the numbers would say that is his superpower, getting to the rim and then being able to finish. I guess why I pushed back or didn't say it was because I guess I do question whether it ends up translating or not. But I mean, just because he's not super athletic or super strong doesn't mean, it won't, because he does have really good touch. I think I believe in the floater. He's got to work on his right hand finishing, but no, that's true. He was an elite finisher around the rim as a guard in college basketball. So, if you buy all of the kind of ways he gets it done, then absolutely. So that's fair.
Connie, anything to add? We've kind of overshadowed you on this pod.
No, it's great. Y'all are making this is good podcasting, man. I enjoy listening to it. He reminds me of all those small scoring guards, those guys that are having a lot of success right now. Those Tyrese Maxey's, Emmanuel Quickley's. You may not be able to break it down to one specific skill other than the 70% at the rim, but I think he's just this crafty left-handed sort of speedster, sort of just skill guy. I just think he's got the sort of craft and the workaround to become a long-time NBA scorer, and I think that's definitely worth a lottery pick.
Are there any guys that you did not squeeze into the lottery that you think have a chance to kind of surprise some people and jump on in there? Gabe, Connie. We'll start with Connie because we've overshadowed him. But Connie, we'll start with Connie.
The shooter from UConn. I forget his name every single time we bring him up for some reason.
Jordan Hawkins.
Yeah.
He gets just his the shooting is one thing. I think the constant off-ball movement is something that a lot of teams value and a lot of teams should value. he can bring so much space, and also all with that space confusion. If he does like end up being like a really high level NBA shooter, he's going to be someone that can move defenses, and when you move defenses, it just becomes so much easier to score. So I think some teams will see real value in him, especially teams that are looking to create a little more offense, make it a little easier for their main guys.
Can definitely see that. Gabe, anyone you weren't able to touch on?
I mean, I didn't have Cason Wallace in my top 14, even though I mean, he could go, it just depends. And then Keontae George, really high upside. He has concerning percentages, but I think that's also just part of the college system. He could be either like a Steph Curry light, or more of a, who's that guy on the Nets who dropped 50 points and I was in the G League?
Cam Thomas.
Yeah. That's kind of his like swing factor, I think, and it's really hard to judge where he could be, but I could see a team like the Pelicans maybe taking a leap, or the Raptors even, on him.
Bryce, anyone you weren't able to touch on?
Yeah, I had Keontae in this same tier, so he would have gone very soon had we continued through the first round. Jalen Hood-Schifino is a guy I really like. I had somebody in the NBA draft community like all year long was like, what do you think about JHS? I really like him. What do you think, man? Like, and I never really bought in. And then recently for Draft Digest, I did this series, the top performance series, where I'd go watch prospects best game essentially of the year and see what their ceilings were. And man, I just love the way that kid plays. He plays with pace. He has good size, so I think he can be a combo guard. Had a great feel and understanding defensively. May not be like an on-ball stopper, but just a good contributor to an all-around defensive scheme. The shot wasn't great from three, but I think the form looks good. So I think he's a guy somewhere in the mid first round. I think a team's going to be really happy. Like the scenario we played out earlier, guys, 9 and 16. It would spell the end of Killian Hayes, but if the Pistons did that and they took Jalen Hood-Schifino at 16, I'd be pretty excited about having that as your third guard, behind Cade and Ivy for the next, 5 to 8 years.
Oh, no question. Yeah. And Valley and I are the Killian supporters, if you remember. So I'd be hurt about it, but I'll get over it. I guess the only reason we were keeping Killian was for that French connection, but now that that's out the window, it's fine.
Hey, I want to see I want to be on the record. I want to see Killian Hayes at least up to the trade deadline, healthy with a Monty Williams coach team. Like, I want to see it. I truly do. Now, if it doesn't, if he needs to go somewhere else, if it doesn't happen, I get it. But I want to see it. I truly do. I wouldn't give him an extension this offseason. No. I would just give me 50 games of healthy Killian Hayes with a Monty Williams offense, and let's find out. We would truly know, I think, who he is as a player and kind of where he's going with his career.
Yeah, I would love to see a healthy Killian Hayes in a new system, just like not free to make mistakes, but a guy who has to actually like play well. And he's not you can't treat him like the kid anymore. I guess he's kind of in year 3, but I'd like to see a big step forward. Let's talk about pick 31 real quick.
Sure.
Who are some guys you got an eye on going 31?
What about Gigi Jackson?
That was a guy we did not talk about, but yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all.
So, are the rumors true that he brought a vape to his workout?
I didn't hear that. I've heard the intel hasn't been. I heard the intel hasn't been very good though. So again, and that's what I've said. We talked about it at length about Cam Whitmore, where I still have Cam Whitmore very high on my Pistons big board, number 1 on my Pistons big board, but I wasn't there for his workout. So, if some of the stuff was as bad as it sounds like it might be, then that would make sense why the Pistons would pass on him. Same thing with Gigi, right? There's some reason somebody this talented is falling. Is it, well, we can't just take a chance on this guy in the lottery bad? Or is it, we can't take a chance on this guy at all? But he's so young. There's going to be some immaturity things. So I think it depends a little bit who you take at number 5 also. But I mean, there's a lot of talent there for pick 31. I like a guy like Julian Phillips. He's a wing that I really like, really good defensively with more offensive upside than what he got a chance to show at Tennessee. And then again, not to replace Killian Hayes, because I stand by what I just said, but if they are ready to move on, Marcus Sasser is a guy I really like. I think he's a really good player. and at 31 would be a really good selection. That pick 31, I'm excited about who they're going to take there. I think it's going to be a valuable position to be in this draft.
Yeah, Gabe and I are holding our breath that Dariq Whitehead falls to 31.
Oh yeah, absolutely, guys. I think that would be awesome. That'd be a great. If at the very least, Dariq is going to space the floor. He's going to be an Alec Burke type replacement in terms of just spacing the floor, knocking down shots, maybe be able to handle a little bit. And then if he regains some explosiveness and stuff that, made him one of the top recruits out of high school, now you're getting a potential starter. So.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited about that. Connie, anybody you got your eye on at 31?
I can't say I've been looking that deep.
Fair enough. Gabe, anyone I skipped over?
No, I mean, you mentioned Whitehead, Strother, I think his name on Gonzaga. I think he's just a good NBA playing wing. I guess in the livers category of player.
Yep.
And then I always forget his name as well. It's a long name. He played for Santa Clara, I think.
Oh, Pajimski, Brandon Pajimski.
Yeah. I don't think he's gonna drop to 31, but if he is there, I'd love to pick him up as well.
Yeah.
Where do you guys see Jet Howard going?
Oh, don't ask me.
Late first, I think. I think he's overrated, but I think he's gonna go late first.
Yeah. I came out of that same top performance series pretty low on Jets.
That's unfortunate.
I just don't see it outside of being there's a lot of value with being a shot maker, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't rebound. I think he's a good passer, but I think a lot of people think he's going to be this creator in ball screens. I didn't see that. I know he operated in a lot of ball screens, but it was the same thing. It's not like he had nuance where he was putting defenders in jail and snaking it and those type of things. I just have a lot of questions. I think he's a first round pick. I just think I have some questions with him. So yeah, I don't know. I came away lower on Jet than what I wanted to be even. So
wow, that's bad. Yeah. All right. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, I think we got all the prospects, all the draft talk. I'm excited for the draft.
Me too.
48 hours now, basically.
Yeah, basically 48 hours from now. So if you guys are listening to this and you're still with us, first of all, greatly appreciate it. Second of all, the guys and I decided that we will be doing a live lottery pod. So
let's go. Good for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we did a live reaction to the lottery. That didn't really go well, but we're gonna try it again with the actual draft. Hopefully we get some better results and we can actually go crazy when Troy Weaver does sneak back into the top 10. But again, Bryce, thank you again so much for coming on. We'll definitely have to have you back, of course. We want to have you back for some free agency, talk more about that guy that we could overpay on a 1-year deal. But until next time, Detroit, throw the Buffs on, because the future, as we talked on for about an hour on this pod, is certainly bright.